At a nearby booth sat Derek, a local loudmouth who'd just been kicked out of a bar for picking fights. As she walked past his table, he sneered. "Hey, old lady," he barked, tapping his cup. "You deaf or just too slow?" Evelyn didn't flinch. "You'll get your coffee when it's ready, son." Her voice was calm, almost maternal. But Derek didn't like calm. He liked fear. He stood up, towering over her, his breath thick with alcohol and arrogance. The diner fell silent. The trucker froze. The cook peeked through the kitchen door, unsure whether to intervene. Then, in one reckless burst of rage, Derek's hand lashed out. A sharp slap echoed through the diner. The cup Evelyn held fell and shattered, splashing hot coffee across the tiles. She stumbled but didn't cry. She simply looked at him, one deep, heavy look. The kind of look that said, "You just made a mistake you'll never forget." A young waitress gasped. Someone pulled out their phone. Derek smirked, enjoying the silence he'd created. He thought he'd won. Thought this was just another night of him proving dominance. What he didn't know was that Miss Evelyn wasn't just anyone's mother. She was the mother of Marcus Black Lion Reed, the most feared yet respected underworld figure in the city. Evelyn quietly wiped her cheek, picked up the shards of glass, and whispered, "I'll let life teach you what I can't." She refused to give him the satisfaction of tears. Derek laughed it off and left a crumpled bill on the table, swaggering out into the rain. But across the city, in a high-rise penthouse with a skyline view, Marcus was having a late dinner meeting with his associates when his phone buzzed. A short video clip, grainy, shaky, showed his mother being struck. The sound of that slap filled the room like thunder. The men at the table stopped talking. Marcus's jaw tightened. He replayed the video once, then twice, then slowly placed the phone down. No words. No shouting. Just silence, the kind that carried a storm behind it. "Find him," Marcus said softly. His tone was calm, too calm. "I don't care who he is. Bring him to me." Outside, rain poured over the city. Somewhere, Derek laughed with his friends, unaware that every second that passed was 1 second closer to a reckoning. Miss Evelyn, meanwhile, closed the diner early that night. She locked the door, looked at her reflection in the glass, and said quietly, "Not again. Not this time." Her eyes glistened, not from pain, but from the heavy burden of what her son might do next. And so began a chain of events that would turn a simple diner scuffle into a story whispered in every back alley and boardroom alike. A tale about respect, power, and the moment a bully picked the wrong woman to humiliate. Morning light slid through the tall windows of Marcus Reed's penthouse, glinting off crystal decanters and the chrome of his expensive watch. The city below still dripped with last night's rain, streets shining like glass. Marcus hadn't slept. The phone video of his mother's humiliation looped in his mind like a broken record. He sat at the long dining table, perfectly still, eyes fixed on a single photograph of Evelyn that stood beside his coffee cup. She was smiling in that picture, proud, radiant, taken on the day he'd bought her the diner. He could almost hear her voice. "No matter how high you climb, boy, remember who you are." His right-hand man, Rico, entered quietly. "Boss," he said, placing a folder on the table. "We found him. Name's Derek Hayes. Works construction. Gets drunk most nights at a bar near the docks. He's small time." Marcus didn't answer immediately. He flipped the folder open, studying Derek's face. A mugshot from a minor assault years back. A smirk, the same arrogance he'd seen on the diner camera. Marcus shut the folder. "Small time," he repeated softly. "Still big enough to lay hands on my mother." Rico hesitated. "What do you want done?" Marcus looked out the window. The skyline reflected in his dark eyes. "No noise. No headlines. Just awareness." He stood, buttoned his jacket, and walked toward the elevator. The marble floor echoed under his steps. Slow, measured, final. Across town, Evelyn was back at the diner. Her coworkers had begged her to take a day off, but she refused. "If I hide, he wins," she said. Still, her hands trembled slightly each time the doorbell chimed. She brewed coffee, smiled at regulars, and pretended everything was fine. A teenage boy from the neighborhood came in, offering to help clean tables. She thanked him, grateful for the distraction. Yet in the back of her mind, she feared what Marcus might do. She'd raised him to survive the streets, but not to live in them forever. He'd built power, fame, but deep down, something in the shadows of the street made him uneasy. A black sedan idled at the curb. The driver's eyes followed Derek silently. When Derek turned toward the alley shortcut, the sedan's headlights flared once, brief and deliberate. He froze. His friends kept walking, oblivious. Then a calm voice echoed from the darkness. "Mr. Hayes." Derek squinted. Two men in suits stepped forward, not thugs, but professionals. "Who's asking?" he said, trying to sound brave. One handed him an envelope. "A message," the man said. "From someone you disrespected." Inside was a single photo, the diner, Evelyn smiling behind the counter, circled in red. And below it, a handwritten note. "Respect is earned, not taken. No sreds, no demands." Just a reminder that someone powerful knew exactly who he was. Derek's bravado melted into nervous laughter. "Tell your boss I didn't mean anything. Just a joke, man." But the men had already turned away, disappearing into the rain-slick street. Back in the penthouse, Marcus received a text. "Delivered." He nodded once, then exhaled deeply, not satisfied, not yet calm. He knew fear alone wouldn't change people like Derek. Only conscience or consequence could. Marcus poured a drink he wouldn't taste and looked again at his mother's picture. "I gave him a warning," he murmured. "Now we see if he learns." In the diner, Evelyn locked up for the night, whispering a quiet prayer that the storm her son had set in motion would pass without destroying anyone. But storms, once born, rarely stop on command. Days passed, but the tension didn't fade. It spread. Derek's laughter disappeared. His swagger evaporated. He began glancing over his shoulder every few minutes, expecting shadows to move. His friends noticed, but he brushed it off. "Just tired," he'd say. But at night, sleep became impossible. Every creak, every engine outside his window felt like a warning. His construction foreman called him out one morning. "Hayes, what's wrong with you? You look like you've seen a ghost." Derek muttered, "Just not feeling great." The foreman frowned. "Then fix it or find another job." He walked away, but Derek's mind was miles from the worksite. The note haunted him. Respect is earned, not taken. He carried it in his jacket pocket like a curse he couldn't throw away. That evening, while heading home, he noticed something strange. His apartment door was slightly open. Heart pounding, he stepped inside. Everything looked normal until he saw the photo on the table. It was of him, standing outside Ruby's diner the night of the slap, taken from across the street. On the back was a new message. "You still have time to make things right." He sank into a chair, shaking. Whoever was behind this didn't want to hurt him, at least not yet. They wanted him to think. And it was working. Meanwhile, across town, Marcus Reed sat in his office above a jazz club he owned, the Velvet Room. Rico stood nearby as Marcus watched security footage of Derek's reactions. "He's spooked," Rico said. "He won't last another week before begging forgiveness." Marcus didn't answer. He turned off the screen and said quietly, "He doesn't need to beg. He just needs to understand what he did." Rico frowned. "Boss, with all due respect, since when do we play the teacher?" Marcus leaned back in his chair. "Since the lesson is for me too." Rico didn't get it, but he didn't press. Marcus's thoughts drifted to Evelyn again. She'd always believed that true power wasn't about revenge. It was about restraint. But the world Marcus lived in didn't always respect restraint. He was torn between his mother's wisdom and the cold rules of the streets. He picked up his phone, hesitated, then called her. "Marcus?" Her gentle voice came through, tired but warm. "Hey, Ma," he said softly. "You okay?" "I'm fine, baby. You don't sound fine, though." "I'm just thinking." Evelyn paused. "You're not thinking about that man, are you?" Silence. "Marcus." She sighed. What happened at the diner? It hurt, yes. But don't let hate live rent-free in your heart. You've built something good. Don't let one fool make you forget that. Marcus smiled faintly. You raised me better than that, Ma. I know, she replied. But I also know what you're capable of. They both stayed quiet for a moment, the line filled with unspoken love and fear. That same night, Derek found himself back outside Ruby's diner. He didn't know why he came. Maybe guilt dragged him there, or maybe he wanted closure. Inside, Evelyn was wiping tables, humming softly. The sound made his chest tighten. He stepped inside. The bell above the door rang. Evelyn looked up, eyes narrowing. We're closed, she said calmly. I know, Derek said, voice trembling. I just wanted to say something. Evelyn didn't move. Then say it. He swallowed hard. I'm sorry. I don't know what came over me. I was drunk, stupid, angry. But that's no excuse. She studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. You hurt me, but you hurt yourself worse. I know. His voice cracked. Please, tell your son I didn't mean it. Evelyn froze. My son. Derek looked confused. You think I don't know who he is? Everyone does. Her heart sank. So the truth was spreading. Marcus's shadow loomed larger than she wanted. Go home, she said finally, and pray this ends here. He nodded and left, shoulders heavy with shame. Evelyn locked the door and whispered, Marcus, what have you done? Back at the velvet room, Marcus stood by the window, watching rain trace slow paths down the glass. He didn't know yet that Derek had just tried to apologize. He didn't know his mother had seen the fear in the man's eyes and chosen mercy over vengeance. But he would soon, and that would test which part of him truly ruled. The son Evelyn raised or the boss the city feared. By morning, the city had woken under a soft gray sky. A mist rolled across the streets, swallowing the neon lights that usually marked the dawn of another restless day. Marcus Reed stood at his office window, coffee in hand, eyes fixed on nothing. He hadn't spoken since midnight. His mind was caught between the two worlds that always pulled him apart. The man his mother wanted him to be and the man the streets demanded he remain. Rico entered quietly. We've got news, he said. Our guy at the diner says the bully came back last night. Marcus turned. Derek? Yeah. Came in late. Tried to talk to your mother. Looked terrified. Said he was sorry. Marcus didn't react. He simply set the coffee cup down, walked to his desk and Saturday and Rico shrugged. She sent him away. No police, no drama. Just told him to leave. Boss, I don't get it. The guy humiliated her in front of the whole city, and she lets him walk. Marcus rubbed his temples. That's who she is. She forgives what I can't. Rico hesitated, then leaned forward. You sure you want to let this one go, Marcus? People are talking. They're saying the great black lion went soft. That some drunk nobody slapped your mother and you did nothing. Marcus's eyes sharpened, the room's silence growing heavier. Let them talk, he said quietly. Respect doesn't come from noise. But your image, Rico began. Marcus cut him off. My mother's peace means more to me than my image. At the diner, Evelyn tried to move on with her life. The customers returned, pretending the viral clip never existed, though some still whispered. A few locals even left flowers outside her door, silent gestures of respect. She smiled politely, but inside, she worried. She knew Marcus's world ran on loyalty, not forgiveness, and loyalty had its own price. Her old friend, Gloria, visited that afternoon. Child, I saw that man come back last night, Gloria said, folding her arms. If it were me, I'd have called the cops. Or worse. Evelyn sighed. And that's why I didn't. Someone has to end the anger somewhere. Gloria raised a brow. You know Marcus won't like that. I know, Evelyn said quietly, staring at the coffee pot. But he'll understand. He has to. That evening, Marcus met with his inner circle in the back of the velvet room. The air was thick with cigar smoke and tension. Men who'd followed him for years, men who'd built their reputations under his name, sat waiting for orders. One of them, Victor, slammed his hand on the table. Boss, I mean, no disrespect, but this ain't right. Word spreading that we let a punk disrespect your family. If we don't respond, every two-bit hustler's gonna think we're losing our grip. Rico stayed silent, watching Marcus closely. Marcus leaned forward, clasping his hands. You think strength is about fear? Victor blinked. Isn't it? Marcus stood, his calm voice cutting through the noise. Strength is knowing when not to burn down a city just to prove you can. Fear fades. Respect lasts. The room went quiet. But make no mistake, Marcus continued. If that man crosses the line again, if he so much as breathes wrong near my mother, there won't be a city big enough to hide him. That was enough. The men nodded, silent. The decision was final. Hours later, Evelyn received a visit. A man in a long coat stood at the diner door after closing. When she opened it, her face softened. It was Marcus. Marcus, she whispered. You shouldn't be here. I needed to see you, he said, stepping inside. I heard he came back. She nodded. He did. He apologized. Marcus looked down, his jaw tightening. You believe him? I believe people can change if we let them. Ma. The world doesn't work that way. She smiled sadly. It does for the few who try. He sat at one of the booths, the same one where Derek had sat that night. The memory stung. You could have called me. I knew what you'd do, she replied gently. That's why I didn't. Marcus sighed. You always taught me to protect what matters. I'm just doing that. Evelyn sat across from him. Protecting me doesn't mean avenging me. It means living in a way that would make me proud. For a moment, Marcus looked like a little boy again. The boy who used to help her carry groceries, who promised to buy her a house someday. Then the mask of the boss returned. You raised a fighter, Ma. That's who I am. She reached across the table, touching his hand. Then fight the right battles. Marcus didn't answer. He just nodded once, stood up, and kissed her forehead. Be safe, Ma. As he left, Evelyn whispered into the quiet diner. So should you, my son. Outside, the rain began again. Soft, steady, cleansing. But in the distance, unseen forces were already stirring. Derek's apology had sparked rumors, and rumors had a way of reaching the wrong ears. The peace Evelyn prayed for was fragile, and fragile things rarely last long in Marcus Reed's world. The city never really slept. It just changed faces after midnight. Neon signs flickered over puddled sidewalks. Sirens sang faintly in the distance. And in the shadows of alleyways, deals were made that never saw daylight. While Marcus Reed tried to keep peace, the streets had begun telling their own version of the diner story. Rumors grew legs. Some said the Black Lion had gone soft. Others whispered that he was plotting something much darker, that his silence was only the calm before a storm. Whispers like that had power. They reached ears that waited for any chance to challenge Marcus's reign. One of those ears belonged to Raymond Knox Keller, a rival who had been watching Marcus for years, waiting for a crack in his armor. Knox was ruthless, smart, charming, and dangerous in all the ways Marcus wasn't anymore. Sitting in the back of a luxury car, he lit a cigar and said to his driver, You hear about that diner thing? The boss of the city letting his mama get slapped. The driver hesitated. Everyone's talking, sir. Knox smirked. Good. Maybe it's time people start wondering who really runs this city. Meanwhile, Derek was trying to rebuild his life. The apology he'd offered didn't erase his guilt. If anything, it deepened it. Every time he passed the diner, he felt the weight of shame press harder on his chest. He'd stopped drinking, stopped going to bars, and started showing up early to work. But redemption isn't always about what you do next. Sometimes, it's about what refuses to leave you. That evening, as he walked home, a car slowed beside him. He recognized neither the vehicle nor the men inside. A voice called out, Derek Hayes. He froze. Who's asking? A man in a tailored suit stepped out, smiling too easily. Relax. I'm a friend. Heard you had some trouble at a diner. Derek frowned. I already said I was sorry. Oh, I'm sure you did, the man said, lighting a cigarette. But see, I think your story's just beginning. The guy who owns this city, Marcus Reed, he's slipping. And you, my friend, you're proof. You stood up to his family and walked away breathing. Derek's heart pounded. I didn't stand up to anyone. I made a mistake. The man blew smoke and chuckled. Mistakes can be rewritten, Derek. You could help us send a message. Maybe even get paid doing it. Derek took a step back. No, I'm done with all that. The man's smile faded. You sure? Because walking away from offers like this, that can be dangerous. The car door slammed, and they drove off, leaving Derek shaken. He didn't know it yet, but he'd just been marked. Not by Marcus, but by Marcus's enemies. At the Velvet Room, Marcus sat with Rico reviewing reports. The tension in the air was thick, like a storm building quietly over the horizon. Boss, Rico said, sliding a tablet across the table. Knox has been moving fast. New territory, new recruits. He's using the diner story as leverage. Says your time's up. Marcus leaned back, expression unreadable. Let him talk. The louder he gets, the more mistakes he'll make. But people are listening, Marcus, Rico insisted. Even some of ours. Marcus stood and walked toward the large painting behind his desk, an oil portrait of a lion in shadow. You know what my mother told me once? She said, when people question your strength, don't roar. Remind them why lions walk alone. He turned back, calm but fierce. Let Knox come, but no one touches my mother. Not even close. Evelyn felt the shift in the air before she knew why. The diner had grown busier lately. Some faces familiar, some not. A few men came in for coffee but asked too many questions. One night, as she was locking up, she noticed a black car parked across the street. Its engine idled, headlights off. She tried to ignore it, but her instincts whispered that this wasn't over. Her phone buzzed, a message from Marcus. Ma, I'll send someone to watch the place for a few days, just in case. She replied, No, Marcus. Don't bring your world into mine. He didn't respond, but she knew he'd already made up his mind. Back in his penthouse, Marcus stared at the city skyline, the glow of streetlights reflecting off his glass windows. Rico entered quietly. It's starting again, isn't it? Rico asked. Marcus nodded slowly. It never really stopped. Then what's the move? Marcus's gaze hardened. We wait, and when they make the first mistake, we finish this once and for all. Below, the city kept breathing. Restless, alive, and unaware that beneath its hum, two storms were forming. One driven by revenge, the other by survival. And standing at the center of both was Evelyn Reed, the woman whose quiet dignity had ignited a war she never asked for. The next evening brought another downpour, the kind that blurred streetlights into hazy halos and made the city look like a memory. Evelyn wiped the diner windows, watching cars drift by like ghosts. She'd been feeling uneasy for days, though she didn't know why. Something in the air carried tension, the kind that made even silence feel loud. She was closing up early when a stranger entered. A tall man in a gray coat, polite smile, rain dripping from his hair. Sorry, ma'am, he said. You still serving? Evelyn hesitated. Just coffee. That's all I need. He sat at the counter, hands clasped. His eyes, though kind at first glance, had a weight behind them, like someone who'd seen too much. As she poured his cup, he said softly, You're Evelyn Reed, right? Her heart skipped. Yes, why? Just curious, he replied, smiling faintly. You run this place well. Something in his tone wasn't right. It wasn't a compliment, it was a probe. Before she could respond, a second man entered, shutting the door a little too quietly. The diner suddenly felt smaller, the hum of the coffee machine louder. Evelyn's instincts kicked in. We're closed, gentlemen, she said, steady but firm. The first man stood. We won't be long. Just wanted to ask about your son. Her stomach dropped. My son. Marcus Reed, the second man said, his voice slick. He's quite the name around here. Evelyn stayed calm. I don't talk business, especially not his. The first man smiled. That's fair. But you see, his business has been affecting ours. And that's inconvenient. Before he could say more, the bell above the door chimed again, and in stepped Rico, drenched from the rain. His eyes locked instantly on the strangers. You boys lost. The tension cracked like a whip. The two men exchanged a look, realizing who they were dealing with. Evelyn crossed her arms. If you came here to threaten me, you can leave now. Rico stepped forward, voice calm but cold. You heard the lady. The first man raised his hands. No threat, just conversation. But it's clear this one's over. They left, slow and deliberate, the doorbell's chime fading into the rain. Rico turned to Evelyn. You okay, ma'am? She nodded, though her hands trembled slightly. I told Marcus not to bring his world into mine. He didn't, Rico said. It came on its own. That same night, across the city, Marcus sat in a dimly lit room watching a silent feed from the diner's security cameras. Rico's warning had reached him fast. They sent people to her? Marcus said, his voice tight. Rico nodded. Knox's men, just testing the water. Marcus clenched his jaw. Then drown them. Rico hesitated. Your mom said not to escalate. Marcus turned sharply. And what happens when they come back? What happens if she's alone next time? He slammed a fist onto the table, sending a glass tumbling. For the first time in years, his control cracked. Rico said nothing because he understood. Marcus exhaled, eyes cold again. No noise. No blood. Just a message. An hour later, Knox arrived at one of his warehouses near the river. The guards nodded as he walked in, only to freeze when they saw what waited on his desk. A small, sealed box. No one knew how it got there. Knox opened it carefully. Inside was a single object, a silver diner bell. It gleamed under the fluorescent light, spotless and deliberate. Attached was a note. You came for my mother. Next time I'll come for your empire. Knox laughed, but it wasn't real laughter. It was the kind that hides fear. He crushed the note in his hand and muttered, So it's war then. The next morning, Evelyn found Marcus waiting outside the diner. He stood by his car, coat still damp from the storm, face hard but eyes full of worry. Ma, he said quietly. They came for you. I handled it, she replied. You shouldn't have had to. She looked at him, seeing both the man and the little boy he used to be. Marcus, every choice you make adds to your shadow. And when that shadow grows too big, it doesn't just cover you. It covers everyone you love. He looked away. Maybe. But if I do nothing, that shadow still finds us. Evelyn reached out, placing a hand on his arm. Then make sure what follows you isn't darkness. Marcus didn't reply. He simply hugged her. Something he hadn't done in years. Then he whispered, I'll fix this. But as he walked back to his car, Evelyn could tell by his stride that he wasn't planning peace. He was preparing for war. That night, Marcus called Rico. Start gathering names, he said. Every man who's ever done business with Knox. I want to know who's loyal and who's not. Rico posed. You're sure, boss? Once we start, there's no turning back, Marcus finished. I know. Outside, lightning flashed over the skyline, lighting up the city like a warning. The rain hadn't stopped. It was just beginning to fall harder. And somewhere across town, Knox stared at the diner bell on his desk, realizing he might have finally provoked a lion who had tried his best to stay asleep. Days passed, but peace never returned. The city, once alive with chatter and movement, now felt divided by invisible lines. Marcus Reed had quietly declared a shadow war, one that didn't spill blood but rewrote power itself. The first moves were silent. Trucks that once carried Knox's goods began breaking down. Suppliers stopped answering his calls. A few of his trusted men suddenly disappeared. Not hurt, just gone. Some fled the city, others switched sides. Marcus didn't need bullets. He used fear and precision like an artist with a blade. Evelyn sensed the shift even before hearing a word. Business at the diner slowed. Strangers lingered too long, and familiar faces vanished. She'd seen this kind of quiet once before, back when Marcus's father ran his empire. Silence was never safety, it was warning. One afternoon, as she refilled coffee for a customer, she looked up to see Derek walk in. His face was bruised, his eyes distant. "Derek," she said softly. "What happened?" He hesitated, glancing around. "Can we talk somewhere private?" She led him to the back booth, where the hum of the fridge masked their words. Derek leaned forward, his hands trembling. "Mrs. Reed, I think I messed up." Evelyn frowned. "What do you mean?" "I thought I could make things right," he said. "After that night, I wanted to prove I'd changed. But Knox found me. He said he knew what I did, that I humiliated his men by defending you. I thought if I helped him with something small, he'd leave me alone. But now—" Evelyn's expression hardened. "What did you do, Derek?" Derek's voice cracked. "I gave him information. About Marcus." The room went still. Even the old clock seemed to stop ticking. "What kind of information?" she asked quietly. "Names. Locations. Not everything. But enough." Evelyn took a deep breath, her heart sinking. "Oh, Derek." He shook his head, tears welling. "I didn't know what he'd do. I thought maybe he just wanted leverage. But he's planning something big. He said he's going to send a message." Evelyn felt the air grow colder. "When?" "Tonight." Without another word, she stood up and walked toward the counter. Her hands shook as she reached for the phone. Across town, Marcus sat in his office when Rico burst in. "Boss, we got a problem. One of Knox's trucks was seen near your mother's diner. And there's chatter. Something's going down tonight." Marcus stood so fast his chair toppled over. "How long ago?" 20 minutes. Marcus grabbed his coat and keys. "Get the car. Now." As they sped through the wet streets, his mind raced with flashes of his mother. Her smile, her voice, her diner, that little bell she loved so much. He'd built an empire of control, but at that moment he felt none. Meanwhile, Evelyn locked the diner's doors and turned off the lights. The rain pounded against the glass, and thunder echoed like distant drums. She told Derek to hide in the pantry. Moments later, she heard it. A car stopping outside. Headlights cut through the rain, and 3 figures stepped out. She could see their shadows through the blinds. Evelyn whispered to herself, "Not tonight." She moved behind the counter, grabbed the baseball bat her late husband once kept for protection, and waited. The door handle rattled. Then came a loud bang, the sound of forced entry. "Evening, ma'am," one of the men said as he stepped in, umbrella twirling lazily. "We're looking for your son." Evelyn's voice didn't shake. "You won't find him here." The man chuckled. "That's fine. Maybe we'll just leave a message." He raised his arm. But before he could act, tires screeched outside, and Marcus burst through the door with Rico behind him. For a second, everything froze. Lightning flashed, illuminating 4 men and a mother who refused to bow. Marcus's voice was calm but filled with steel. "If you touch her, I'll bury your boss's name so deep, no one will remember it." The intruders hesitated. Rico's hand rested near his jacket, ready but not reckless. The tension stretched like a wire about to snap. Then, slowly, the men backed away. "This isn't over," one muttered. Marcus stepped forward. "It is for you." They left into the storm, the door slamming behind them. Evelyn finally exhaled, setting the bat down. "Marcus," she said softly, "you can't keep living like this." He turned to her, drenched and trembling. "They came for you. What did you expect me to do?" "I expected you to rise above it," she said. "Not sink deeper." Marcus looked away, guilt flashing across his face. "I can't lose you, Ma." She placed a hand on his cheek. "Then don't make me watch you lose yourself." For the first time, Marcus didn't argue. He just nodded, his jaw tight, his heart torn. Later that night, Knox sat in his office, staring at a photo of Marcus and Evelyn on his desk. One of his men had taken it earlier. He crushed it in his hand. You think you scared me, Reed? He growled. You've just given me reason to burn everything you love. As thunder roared outside, the line was drawn. The shadow war was no longer quiet. It had just found its spark. The night after the confrontation, the rain stopped, but the city didn't feel calm. The streets looked washed. Yet under that cleanliness, tension ran like a current waiting to burst. Marcus hadn't slept. He sat by his office window, cigarette untouched between his fingers, eyes locked on the skyline. Every empire, he thought, is built on choices, some you make, some that make you. And tonight, one of those choices was coming for him. Rico entered quietly. Boss, we've confirmed it. Knox's men are gathering near the old port. Marcus didn't look away from the window. How many? Too many to be a coincidence. Marcus nodded. He's making his move.
Rico Said.
You sure you want to do this, Marcus? We could walk away. Let it die. Marcus finally turned, his expression cold but tired. They came for my mother. He doesn't get to walk away after that. At the same time, in the small back room of the diner, Evelyn sat with Derek. The young man had barely spoken since last night. His guilt hung thick in the air. I didn't mean for any of this, he said softly. Evelyn looked at him, not with anger, but deep disappointment. Good intentions mean nothing when they lead to harm, Derek. But that doesn't mean you can't make it right. He looked up. How? Knox doesn't forgive. And Marcus? He's going to war. She took a deep breath. Then we stop it before it starts. Knox's men gathered at the port, a warehouse district drenched in fog. Trucks idled, their headlights cutting through the mist. At the center, Knox stood in his long coat, cigar burning bright against the gray. Tonight, he said, we end Marcus Reed's story. His empire falls. His name fades. And anyone who's ever feared him will know it's me they should bow to. The men cheered, but there was hesitation in their eyes. Marcus Reed wasn't a name you cheered against lightly. Then a car pulled up, a rusted sedan, not one of theirs. The door opened, and Derek stepped out, hands raised. Boss. One of Knox's men shouted, That's the kid. Knox smirked. Well, the traitor returns. Derek swallowed hard. I came to talk. Knox's grin widened. Talk? You sold out your old friends to help me, remember? You don't talk, you obey. Not anymore, Derek said. I made a mistake. Knox took a drag of his cigar, amused. Then you'll die an honest man, I suppose. Before Knox could give the order, headlights flared from the other side of the lot. For black SUVs rolled in, silent but purposeful. The moment they stopped, men in dark coats stepped out. Marcus's men. Knox chuckled. He's here. Good. Let's finish this. Marcus emerged from the lead car, calm as ever, Rico beside him. Knox, he called. You should have stayed in your lane. Knox tossed his cigar aside. You think you scare me, Reed? No, Marcus said. But you made a mistake coming after my mother. That's something I don't forgive. The air between them thickened. Guns were drawn but not fired. Everyone waited for a single word to decide who'd live and who'd regret showing up. Then, suddenly, Evelyn's voice broke the silence. Enough! She appeared from behind one of the SUVs, raincoat wrapped around her shoulders. Derek followed close behind. Marcus's heart dropped. Ma, what are you doing here? Stopping this, she said, before you both destroy everything you've built, and everyone you love. Knox laughed. You brought your mother to a fight? That's low, even for you, Reed. Evelyn turned her gaze on Knox, unflinching. You hurt my people. You tried to burn what we built. And for what?
Bride?
Power? My son became who he is because men like you never understood mercy. Her words cut through the noise, and for a moment, even Knox's men seemed unsure. Marcus stepped forward. Ma! Get behind me. But she didn't move. She faced Knox directly. You want to prove your strength? Then be man enough to stop before you lose everything. Knox's jaw tightened. I've already lost enough. Then don't take more with you, she said softly. He hesitated. For a moment there was a flicker of humanity, but then it vanished. You think words change anything? He raised his hand, signaling his men. But before he could speak, Derek shouted, "Don't! She's right." Everyone turned. Derek's voice trembled but grew stronger. "This isn't strength, it's stupidity. I was one of you. I saw what this life does. You think you win by fear, but you only end up alone." Knox glared at him. "You think you're better than me, boy?" "No," Derek said, stepping forward. "I just finally learned what not to become." At that instant, Rico moved closer to Marcus. "Boss," he whispered. "Say the word and it's done." Marcus looked at his mother, calm, defiant, drenched in rain but unbroken. Then he shook his head. "No, we end this differently." He turned to Knox. "Walk away, now, or the next time I see you, there won't be words." Knox studied him for a long moment, then smirked. "You're your mother's son after all." He motioned to his men. "Let's go." The cars rolled out one by one, engines fading into the night. When the last light disappeared, Evelyn finally exhaled. Derek sank to his knees, relief and shame washing over him. Marcus looked at his mother. "You saved him, and maybe me too." She smiled faintly. "You just needed to be reminded who you are." Marcus looked out toward the foggy port. It's over. But in his heart, he knew. Peace was fragile, and even the calmest night can hide another storm. For the first time in months, the city seemed still. The storm had passed, both in the skies and in Marcus Reed's world. Knox had retreated into silence, his men scattered. Evelyn's diner reopened, and life, or something that resembled it, returned. Yet under that fragile calm, the streets whispered. People talked about the night at the port, how the two kings of the city had stood face to face and walked away without bloodshed. Some called it peace. Others called it unfinished business. Marcus knew it was the latter. Peace built on fear was just a pause before the next war. Every morning, Marcus stopped by the diner before heading to his office. He never said much, just took his usual seat by the window, drank his coffee, and listened to the soft jazz Evelyn always played. Evelyn noticed something different in him. His eyes were quieter, but they carried the weight of someone trying to learn how to live outside of power. "Thinking again?" she asked one morning, setting down his cup. He smiled faintly. "Trying. You ever notice how quiet feels louder when you're used to chaos?" She chuckled softly. "That's called peace, Marcus. You just don't recognize it yet." He looked out the window, the corner of his lip curving. Maybe, but deep inside, he knew peace came with its own dangers because quiet gave people time to plot. Meanwhile, Knox wasn't gone. He was waiting. In a dim room lit only by the orange glow of a cigarette, Knox sat across from a man whose face was hidden in shadow. "You hesitated that night," the stranger said. Knox exhaled smoke slowly. "Didn't seem worth dying over." "Then you've forgotten who you are," the man replied. "Reed humiliated you. In front of your people. In front of my people." Knox glared at him. "And what do you want me to do? He's untouchable. No one dares move against him." The stranger smiled, thin and cold. "Everyone has a weakness. His is that diner. That old woman. You take that away, and he'll break himself." Knox hesitated. "You touch her, and he'll burn the city." "That's the point," the stranger said. "You light the match. I'll fan the flames." Knox didn't respond. He just stared at the table, the sound of rain beginning again outside. It was always raining in this city when bad choices were made. At the diner, Derek had started working part-time, washing dishes, cleaning tables, and quietly rebuilding his life. Evelyn had given him that chance. "Everyone deserves a second chance," she told him. "What matters is what you do with it." He smiled faintly. "Guess I'm lucky you're stubborn enough to believe that." She smirked. "You're lucky my coffee machine needed fixing." But beneath the warmth, Evelyn could sense something. A chill in the air, a feeling she couldn't name. Old instincts, perhaps. She'd lived around dangerous men too long not to feel when something was coming. That night, she stayed late, closing alone. The rain outside mirrored the first night Derek had walked in, the night everything began. She locked the doors, turned off the lights, and started counting the register when a faint noise broke her rhythm. A creak from the back door. "Derek?" she called out. No answer. Her heartbeat quickened. She reached for the bat under the counter, the same one that had seen too much. Then a voice. Calm. Familiar. "Evening, Mrs. Reed." She froze. It was Knox. He stepped out of the shadows, rain dripping from his coat, eyes sharp with something darker than anger. Obsession. "Don't scream," he said quietly. "I'm not here to hurt you. Not unless I have to." Evelyn stood her ground. "You shouldn't have come here." He smiled faintly. "Maybe, but you cost me everything. My men, my money, my name. You and your boy. You did that to yourself," she said firmly. "Maybe," he admitted, "but I need him to feel what I felt, powerless." Evelyn's grip on the bat tightened. "You won't get that here." Knox's expression softened in a way that made her uneasy. "You've got courage. I see where he gets it from." He stepped closer. "You tell Marcus this isn't over. Tell him I'm not hiding. I'm waiting." And just like that, he turned and walked out into the rain, leaving muddy footprints across her clean floor. Minutes later, Marcus's car screeched to a halt outside. He stormed in, eyes scanning every corner. "Where is he?" Evelyn pointed at the door. "He just left." Marcus's jaw clenched. "Did he touch you?" "No," she said. "But he wants you to think he can." Marcus looked at her, then at the footprints leading to the door. He made it personal again. Evelyn touched his arm gently. "Don't go after him." He didn't answer. "Marcus," she said firmly, "if you start this again, you'll never stop. That's what he wants, to pull you back into his world." He finally met her eyes. "He came here, Ma. That's my world now, too." Evelyn's eyes watered. "Then you'll lose everything I tried to save." He stood there for a long moment, torn between rage and reason. Then, quietly, he said, "I'm not going to kill him." "Then what will you do?" she asked. Marcus looked out at the rain, voice low. "End him without touching him." That night, Marcus called Rico. "Find out who's backing Knox," he said. "Someone's keeping him afloat. I want names, accounts, everything."
Rico hesitated.
"You planning to make this clean or loud?" Marcus stared out his window. "Clean, but final." As the call ended, lightning split the sky, and Marcus whispered to himself, "He came to the diner once. He won't get a second chance." The city woke under a thick fog, heavy, gray, and silent. To most, it was just another morning. But to Marcus Reed, it felt like the calm before a verdict. He hadn't slept. He'd spent the night watching the diner's camera feeds, every corner, every shadow. He couldn't shake the image of Knox standing in his mother's diner, mocking everything sacred to him. It wasn't fear anymore, it was principle. This wasn't about revenge. It was about ending the game before someone else paid the price. Rico entered quietly, a manila folder in hand. "We found your answer, boss." Marcus turned from the window. "Talk." Rico laid the file on the table. "Knox isn't working alone. He's being funded by Councilman Avery, the same politician you helped put in office 5 years ago." Marcus's expression froze. "Avery?" "Yeah," Rico said. "He's been using Knox's network to clean his money and keep control of the ports. Knox was just his muscle until you cut him off. Now they're desperate." Marcus exhaled, the truth settling in like a bad taste. "So it was never just Knox. He was a pawn." Rico nodded. "And Avery's planning to get rid of both of you. He wants the city clean before election season." Marcus stared at the fog outside, voice cold. "Then let's dirty it for him." At the diner, Evelyn wiped the counter as the first customers trickled in. Derek brewed coffee in the back, humming softly to a tune on the radio. The world felt almost normal again, deceptively so. Evelyn had learned that quiet could be dangerous. The door chimed, and a man in a suit walked in. His smile was too polished, his eyes too calm. "Morning, ma'am," he said. "Coffee, please." She nodded, pouring his cup. You new around here? Just visiting, he replied. Though I hear your son's quite the figure in town. Her hand paused mid-pour. Excuse me? He smiled wider. Avery sends his regards. Before she could react, Derek appeared behind the counter, eyes sharp. You need to leave, he said. The man stood, still smiling. Tell your son the city doesn't belong to him anymore. Then he left, his untouched coffee steaming quietly on the table. Evelyn's hands trembled as she picked up the cup. She didn't need to ask who Avery was. The name alone carried danger. That night, Marcus met Avery in a downtown penthouse, neutral ground, at least on paper. Avery was tall, charming, with the kind of confidence that came from believing the law bent for him. Marcus, he said smoothly, you've built an empire, but empires are messy. I'm offering you a chance to clean up. Step aside, retire, live quietly. You and your mother deserve peace. Marcus leaned back, voice quiet but sharp. You sent a man to my diner. Avery's smile didn't fade. Just a conversation. Nothing happened. Marcus's gaze hardened. Nothing yet. Avery poured himself a drink. You've had your time, Marcus. But people like me, we write the next chapter. Politicians, not gangsters. You can't win this world anymore. Marcus stood slowly, adjusting his coat. You're right. I can't win it. But I can expose it. Avery froze. What? Marcus turned toward the door. You've been laundering through Knox, hiding behind charity fronts. I've got the files, the transfers, the names. Tomorrow morning, every news outlet in this city will get a copy. Avery's charm cracked. You'd burn us both. Marcus looked over his shoulder. You already did. He walked out without another word. By dawn, chaos hit the city. News stations blared headlines. Councilman Avery under investigation for money laundering. Evidence links local politician to crime syndicate. Knox vanished. His warehouses were raided. His men scattered again, this time for good. The empire of lies collapsed, not with gunfire, but with exposure. Evelyn watched it unfold on the diner's small TV. She didn't cheer. She just sighed. A mix of relief and sadness. When Marcus walked in, she poured his coffee without a word. Busy morning? She said quietly. He smiled faintly. Just tying loose ends. She looked at him for a long moment. And now, he exhaled. Now, I think I'm done. Evelyn nodded, eyes glistening. You did the right thing, Marcus. He chuckled softly. You always said that's the harder thing to do. She smiled. It always is. That evening, as the sun dipped low, Marcus sat alone in the diner booth, the same one where it all began. Derek cleaned tables nearby, the radio played soft blues, and the air smelled of coffee and rain. For the first time in years, Marcus felt something he couldn't name. Maybe peace, maybe exhaustion, maybe both. Evelyn joined him, setting a slice of pie in front of him. On the house, she said. He looked up, smiling. Still trying to feed me into forgiveness? Maybe, she said. Or maybe I just missed my boy sitting here. They ate in silence, the kind of silence that didn't hurt anymore. Outside, the neon open sign flickered, just like always. The diner was still standing, just like Evelyn. And for once, Marcus realized that power wasn't in control or fear, it was in endurance. As he finished his pie, he looked at his mother and said quietly, It's over. She smiled softly. Then let it be. Later that night, Marcus stood outside, staring at the empty street. The rain had finally stopped for good. The city breathed again. He whispered to himself, For you, Ma. Then he turned away from the shadows, walked into the light of the diner, and didn't look back.